Philly Phil Morrison. Got a question for you, man.
Yes, sir.
How would you personally define confidence?
Yeah, I think confidence is really a good sense of identity in who you are, and then your ability to deal with stresses or challenges and overcome those. I think, the old saying, I think it might be a Jordan quote is, you know, um, confidence comes from preparation.
Mm,
So it's the ability to draw back on what you've done to prepare. But I think the application of that is sometimes where it gets lost. How does if I'm not a world class athlete, if I'm just a kid, I'm a basketball player, I'm a soccer player, I'm a football player, whatever it might be. How do I how do I build confidence, and what's that frame when I play and I'm a novice? Like I'm not good. How do I keep going when I'm not good and
yeah.
build confidence? So that's really tends to be the arena that I'm in, and that tends to be how I define confidence.
I think the key piece that we skip over sometimes, like we're aware of it, but I think it's a little underrated under radar, is knowing who you are, like your identity.
Mhm.
And especially in like basketball, bro, like that's the biggest cure we can fix is changing the identity of hoopers. Like, stop labeling yourself as just a hooper, and that's all you do. That's all you know, and that's it. Because, like man, that ball starts bouncing at some point, and you have to recreate the identity and know who you are. If you come from the gate knowing that this thing of basketball is something that I choose to do, it's not who I am. It doesn't define me. And if we could
Absolutely.
really rebuild that identity of hoopers and label them just being great and just being a gentleman, being kind hearted, being a hard worker, and things like that, versus I'm a basketball player, that can really like restructure and reframe players' confidence because we stop living and dying by, oh, I had a good game. I had a bad game. I had okay game. We won. We lost. I'm not saying don't lose the energy and empathy that we have for it, but like don't live and die by every moment of the game. I think that's a big piece that we can change. With us being trainers, as coaches, as parents, of not labeling kids and identifying them with the sport they play and who they are. Like separate those two. So I think we can do a better job of doing that. But what are your thoughts around that? Like the identity that kids have with basketball like that?
Well, I mean, the frame that I come from is my identity is in Christ. So the problem that I found is when your identity is based in your performance, you ride this roller coaster continuously. You know, the quote that I always say is, me as a kid, I was a perfectionist. When you're a perfectionist, you rob yourself from your ability to be confident because perfectionism is just a way to beat yourself up.
Mm,
So most people think a perfectionist holds themselves to a high standard. And actually, the opposite is true. Perfectionism is the lowest possible standard you can have because it doesn't exist. It's
mm,
just a way for you to beat yourself up. A perfectionist will constantly choose, it's a decision. They will choose to focus on the negative or latch on to a negative outcome or emotion when there's plenty of positive things to go by. Here's a good example. When I was a kid, I could score 25 and we win the game. But as soon as I got in the car, the first thing I thought about was the shot that I missed or the turnover that I made. And that's what I choose to focus on, always beating myself up. And the punchline of that is the thing that gave me the most joy, basketball, was also the source of my greatest misery.
mm,
And I could never get out of this cycle all the time. So my identity was entirely wrapped up in my performance. And that we could go a lot of directions with that. Some of that is my fault. I think a lot of that is that we grow up with kids in a pressure cooker situation where they only know love and acceptance based on their performance.
yeah.
Performance based love, performance based parenting, performance based coaching. So it's really hard for a kid to separate those two things, man. That's really my heart on the issue of trying to separate the two. It's really hard to separate the two when we glorify perfectionism, when we glorify Mamba mentality, when we glorify no days off. So it really just puts a kid in a tough situation where it's hard to build confidence in that type of environment.
You ever stepped on the court and it's almost like you forget how to hoop? Like you were just killing it to practice before, but then the game time hits and warms you a little less confident, little not feeling as much. But then the game hits. It's almost like somebody took your controller and they unplugged it and it just turned it off. It's not working anymore. So now game time coming, you start pump faking on wide open shots, and on the fast break you're hesitating. And by the end of the game, the coach is like, "Who is this kid? Why are they on my team? How did they get on my team? I don't recognize this player anymore." It's almost like that Space Jam scene when the NBA players got their talent stolen by the aliens, and they start looking around like, "Where am I? What is going on with me?"
Come on, we're okay. We're okay. You're all right. Come on, let's go.
Come on, Patrick, it's showtime.
And I get it. I feel you. Confidence is a really tricky thing. It's weird. But I got some good news for you right here. You don't have to hope to feel confident every game because I made something special just for you. I have a pre-game and a post-game checklist for your confidence. All right. It's the things you can do before you step on the court to make sure that you feel confident and to bounce back after the game to make sure that you're always improving and building your game. So hit the link below and it'll be sent straight to you guys. And it's going to help you out so you don't feel like that 2K player that's just glitching in the middle of the game anymore.
And his name is John Cena.
All right, so it's going to have you get back to feeling like yourself and playing like you never have before. So go ahead and hit the description below and lock in with us and get your confidence rebuilt. Man, you talking about language, man, because I was the same way as a player. And shoot, even today as a grown man, I still struggle with having these high standards and having not even like necessarily perfection, but there's a level that I hold myself to, a standard that I hold myself to, and it's such high pressure that I'll actually tell my girls that I train is like if I can figure out how to manage the pressure that I put on myself with the high standards that I have, I'll be good. Because the difference between pressure and the standard, like it's a level of excellence that you hold yourself to, but then there's pressure of being at that standard. And the pressure is what I want to take off. Like I still want to be excellent, like like having a spirit of excellence. I still want to maintain that. But the pressure I put on myself of not reaching that, not giving myself grace and giving myself that love when I fall short, not giving myself room to breathe, to make mistakes along the way is what I mess up with. And I think now more than ever, players have that same thing of like, I have to have a scholarship at 13 years old. I have to put up this amount of points. I got to play varsity. I got to do this. I got to do that. So how can we do a better job with getting the players to understand like you can be great and have this level of standards for yourself and want to do great things and be a great person, but you don't have to live with like this anti you and live with the fear that come along with it. How can we do a better job of doing that for them?
I think it really comes down to this really simple step, and that is allow yourself to be a human being. So the first thing you have to do is give yourself permission to fail. And some people never get to this point and they might overlook what I'm saying right now. But that is a powerful thing for someone who demands excellence and wants to succeed and is a gym rat, to give themselves room to be a human being. You know, the analogy that I like to use is the baby walking analogy. You know, a baby, I have a 10-month-old. She just started walking this week, right? So I'm living it right now. A baby stands up and then falls, and then stands up and then falls, and then tries to take a step and then falls. And let's say we repeat that 10 times. Well, what if the baby had the mindset of all of us? I tried it. It didn't work. It's not happening. Well, the baby would never walk, right? And that might be hundreds of times that the baby fails before it takes its first step and then begins to walk and then begins to move faster and then jog and then run and then jump, right? And we lose that mindset No one would look at a baby and go, "What's wrong with you? Why you keep falling? What's wrong with you? You can't walk?" I mean, right? No, what do? The parent, they stand up and they go, "Oh," they praise them. They take a step and fall and they scream, and then they take one little lazy step and they're like, "Wow, they took it." Like we praise their effort, not their accomplishment.
Hmm.
And I think for someone as we get older, we lose that. But if you can just give yourself a little bit of cushion, a little bit of room to make the mistakes, the necessary process to be successful, that we fail our way to success. We don't perfect our way to success. We fail our way to success. So I think, just to keep it real simple, the first step would be allow yourself to be a human being and give yourself permission to fail.
Mm. I think that's a big step that is hard for us to grasp sometimes because especially with social media, all we see is wins and highlights. Like people are some level of transparent, but it's out of 10 posts, you have one or two transparency posts. Like, yeah, I failed today, man. I messed this up. I did that. But the other 8 wins that you have, I had a 30-point game. I just got this new big time client. I just made this much from this camp, or I just did whatever. I got this new shoe deal, whatever it is. So it's some level psychologically having us thinking that, oh, I should have 8 wins. And I mean, yeah, I should have 8 wins and 2 losses. And that's the cushion I should have. Like, no, they didn't post the other 30 losses they had to get those 8 wins. They just only shared two. They had 30 more losses. They really had 50, but they couldn't even share the other 20. That's just too personal for them to share. I think we get misconstrued about what the journey looks like because we see wins on social media and then we talk to people, they're not always transparent about the full journey of what they went through. So I think that's a big problem that we have because we only see parts of the journey. We only see parts of the story. And we're thinking that we're not doing enough because I have all these losses, but all I see is wins. I scroll and I see wins. This player's ranked this player's ranked that, this player just had this record, this player just did that. So I think for the players, how can they manage what they see on social media with what you're saying of like accepting that I'm gonna lose and be a human being too?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, B, that's one reason why I love documentaries, um, biographies, documentaries. Something I talk about often with young players when I'm doing like workshops and we're having talks or even in devotionals is, there's only one common denominator, one common theme among every athlete or someone in business or someone who did amazing things in their life. There's only one common denominator, and that is they didn't quit. That's literally the only common denominator. Everybody's journey looks different. You would be foolish to. It's why we have different fingerprints. Everyone's made differently in the image of God. So your journey will look just as different in that way. But if you look at these people, most of them had their greatest success on the heels of their greatest failure. That's like a very common thing when you read biographies or documentaries. And so these people had unbelievable challenges they had to overcome, tragedies, right? Betrayals, hard lessons, failures. Um, and those defining moments created a certain level of grit and character and perseverance so that when they actually take off and you get to see the highlight reel, and the old saying is, it took me 20 years to be an overnight success, right? When you see them and their stars rising, it's very hard to appreciate the dark place that they went through, each person, to kind of get where they're at. We tend to overlook that. And, that's the whole thing about social media. And that's why we connect with people that um, we relate to. We love an underdog. We love to forgive someone who's transparent and humble, and we resist the manufactured, the photoshopped, the that annoys us because we know that that's not reality in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? So that would be my encouragement to a generation that comes up in social media that scrutinizes each other, but we scrutinize ourselves the most. is just look at the people that you would consider heroes that you admire and take a deep dive into their story of how much failure and challenges they had to overcome to get to the point where you want to read their book, wear their shoe, or watch their documentary.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because J. Cole right now, he's one of my favorite rappers of all time. But he's doing this audio series. I don't even know what they exactly called it, but it's like him and his partner and manager, they're going back through the old days from he first started doing music to his first mixtape, second mixtape, album, so on and so forth. And he's really like one thing that always stuck with me or sticking with me now. He keeps saying how he's in a pocket where he has very high highs, but at the exact same time having very low lows. So, for example, he was on tour and he was, I think, out of London, I believe, and the place is packed. It's going crazy. Like, oh snap! Like I'm really doing it. Like I'm on the come up now. I'm finally making moves. On the same tour, he's in a whole other city now, and it's like 20 people in there. And it's like, man, like, am I tripping? Like, I just went from sold out to nothing, like in comparison. Like, this is crazy. Like and then the label saying, oh, we're only going to sell this much, and I have to do this. I have to do this for the label. You know, the music industry is different back then, so I have to do this to please them. But like, I'm going out in the streets and I'm getting love from the fans. Like, I'm not doing good enough, but something over here is working too. So you keep balancing these very high highs with these very low lows. And it's interesting because we don't see that from the outside looking in. We just see he dropping music. Oh, he got signed to J. Cole. I mean, he just got signed to Jay Z. Man, he doing it big.
Mm.
But it took him this process to get there. And then during the process of being there's another thing. So it's funny to see his journey and him talk about the highs and the lows that he has. Because we don't see that all the time.
Yeah. Um, it's like you telling that story. I think of three or four stories in my head, where in my own journey, no, even though it's nowhere near anything of that level, but I've always found interesting that professional athletes and getting to know other people that are even at a higher level, most of them are miserable. I'm glad that mental health is a topic nowadays, but most of those people never, the fans enjoy it, the fans admire it, people from the outside looking in admire it, but just the ability to get there and sustain it, most people are miserable at that level. They don't have any real peace about their journey or where they're at in life because we always are trying to go higher, right? We're always trying to sustain what we even built or did. And it's hard to find peace in that place. You know what I mean? And I found it like Hall of Fame speeches are always interesting to me, right? They talked about how it went by like that, and they never actually like stopped and smelled the roses. They never actually stopped and enjoyed it. Remember Kobe talking about that is because you were so consumed with the next game, right? The next challenge that you were in it. You never really stepped out of it and enjoyed it. And that's the truth for all of us.
Yeah, that's something I always wrestle with, man. Like, how can we get to a better space of locking in, doing the work, head down? Like, this is the work ethic is required to be great, but still taking a step back, being a human being, and enjoying the journey and the process too. Because I wrestle with that. Like, I'm a big Kobe guy, so I was kind of groomed in that philosophy of you work, 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 work. But how do we have enjoyment in the work and enjoy our lives and enjoy like kids now being in high school, like still, bro, be a high school student, but I want to make it to the NBA still. Enjoy being a college kid, but I still have aspiration of doing this thing. How can we blend those two worlds to where we're enjoying our life still, but still putting in that work of what's required too?
Yeah, that's the trap, isn't it? That's the carrot at the end of the stick. We all live there. I'm guilty of it. I'm just in a different place in my life too, bro, where even in the basketball training industry, I really pulled back from it because I just felt like I wasn't having as big of an impact. I felt like the Lord was leading me in another direction. So that idea, and I'm a gym rat, bro. Like that's my trauma. My trauma is I work. You know what I mean? Like I want to work, work, work. I'm a gym rat. That's how I play college ball. That's how I play pro ball. And then I took the same mindset into business and training and everything I do. And but it just what brings to mind is when Jesus said, what profit a man if he gains the whole world and yet loses his soul? And so the idea is actually, what is your priority? I would say, what is my ministry?
Mhm.
Majority of these people, and this is not judgment on anybody. Let me preface this because I got love for everybody, and I pray wherever you're at, the Lord is leading you and a blessing over you. But the majority of these high performing coaches and athletes, they all end up divorced. They lose their family, all in the pursuit of what? Money, the pursuit of fame, the pursuit of a trophy that collects dust, an idea that I am important and I'm valuable. It's an idea. And, the greatest gift you have is like, your family, your loved ones, if you have children. I love the saying, bloom where God plants you,
Mhm.
right where you're at. So these players, right? These people that are right in front of you, instead of always searching for a platform and a big stage, um, really honing in on what's right in front of you and being able to realize that the grass isn't green on the other side. The grass is green where you water it.
Mhm.
You jump across the yard over there, you're like, man, they got doo doo in their yard too. You know what I mean? They got issues over here too. So the grass is green where you water it, and I think that's the struggle of man, is to find contentment in that. You know what I mean? So I think for me personally, I've had to really pull back. I had my third child, my daughter, my baby girl, and God used that for me to chill myself. You know what I mean? I was out traveling, doing camps, and even doing ministry, like what people would consider a good thing. And I felt like I wasn't doing my job as a husband and a father, if I was honest. And so I had to really pull back, and really hone in on what's important rather than this idea of ambition, that I think so many people get lost in. They go down that rabbit hole and they never make it out.
Yeah. It's like we hear this all the time about we have to define what success means to us. And like it makes sense and I hear it all the time, but this is God following business. Alex Ramosi, he says about how he he chooses to define success for him. And he hears all the time about how people say they don't want my life. And it's like, fine, you don't have to live it. Like he loves to do what he does. He loves business. He loves that. That's how he operates and lives his life. And most people can't function how he functions in doing what he does. And so him and 10 other entrepreneurs all have the same idea of what success is for them. And so I can't look at person number two and say they're failing or succeeding. I define success by like what you're saying. I want to be a family man. I want to be able to handle business and to be able to keep myself whole, keep my mind too. The next person is like, I got my family and we're good, but I don't have to spend that much time with them. I think we have to get more clear on what our own specific goals are, what our ideas are of success, because once we figure that out, we free ourselves from the external pressure of what mom and dad wants. We free ourselves from what this person wants and judges us from, because now we're living by what makes sense for us. Because if I personally want a podcast all day and that makes me happy and I feel successful doing that, then I'm not failing in life. If that's what makes me happy and I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and talking to you helps you out and the people listen to it are getting what they need from it, I'm winning. I might not want to
Yeah.
go and travel all the time. I might not want to do all this other stuff. I don't have the cool life of what people want to have, but that's what winning is for me. So I think that's what kind of helps everybody out when they find it clicks for them. Like you talk about artist story success, they talk about how I define what success was for me. I can't win 5 rings, but I can go out every night and give what I have. I can't go out and win this. I can't guarantee I win this game, but I can do what I can, be a better teammate. I can talk to my coach better, do whatever success means for them. That's how they define it. So I think we can do a better job of really sitting down and thinking, what is success? What does this win mean for me? And how can I do this as many days as rolling as I can?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you hit it on the head when you were talking about defining success off of what makes you happy, because I think most people are trying to get success out of trauma. I'll use Alex Hormozy as an example. If you've heard his story, I mean, his internal conflict is clearly with his father.
Mhm.
And he actually had to physically move out of the same region as his dad because of that trauma. So, as much as people glorify him his business, what I see is a man trying to prove to his father that he's successful because he didn't do what his father told him to do.
Mhm.
Right? That's an internal struggle. All the YouTube success and the celebrity and all that. Like, what I see is, yeah, extremely gifted, a worker, a grinder. But I see that's directly correlated to the broken relationship with his father.
Mhm.
So where do you find happiness? You know what I mean? According to the world success, I would say Alex Hormozy is extremely successful and wealthy. But I could see his internal conflict though is with his father. There's not peace and happiness necessarily there. I hope he finds it, but that's kind of the thing, is finding, why do I consider this to be successful? Why is this so important to me that I'm willing to sacrifice all these things and people and collateral damage to get that thing that I want? You know what I mean? So I think everybody has to wrestle with their own demons in that way.
I'm glad you took it the parent route. Because I think that's the origin story of where confidence is either built or broken at. So it's kind of, it goes along the talk of nature versus nurture, and our parents are like that first true exposure of who we are, what we are, who we can or can't be, and that's the foundation being laid of our identity essentially. And like man, like that's the source of players' trauma because oh man, I'm gonna have to hear mom and dad when I get in the car, or if I miss
Mm-hmm.
this shot, mom, I don't want to hear my dad fussing at me from the crowd, like all this stuff, man.
Mm.
And matter of fact, I'll just keep it open for you, man. Like, what are your thoughts around confidence, players, and parents? What comes to mind with for those three entities?
Well, I think in my personal experience, I can't speak for other people. What I have found with healthy relationships, but I get a lot of times the overbearing parent, right? We joke about the AAU parent.
Yeah.
And what I've always found is it always comes from a place of love. I think what I found with some of these intense over the top parents, helicopter parents, or living through their child, is that it actually comes from a good place. It's just expressed in a toxic way. And
Mm-hmm.
so you don't see what you don't see because you're operating out of trauma. You're operating out of a blind spot. Everybody else in the gym can see it's not healthy what you're doing, but to you, you're putting your baby in the best possible position. And I know what buttons I need to push, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, this goes back to, is a parent willing to heal and then put their child in a position, because it's such an unfair thing to the child to have to live up to the standard that the parent couldn't live up to, where they are, the child is constantly, when I talk about confidence in a child, I always go back to performance based love with that a parent puts on a kid, or even, youth coaches for that matter. So the thing that we don't heal from is what we pass on.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that we hate, if we don't heal from it, we become that to our kids. That's why I like, man, that's what my dad used to do, or man, my mom used to do. Like, you do it subconsciously, and you might even hate it because the thing you don't heal from is the thing you pass on. And so, when it comes to confidence in a child, you got to think, when you're dealing with a kid who's forming an identity, your job is to empower the kid, right? So when you're empowering a kid, there has to be some level of ownership that kid has to fail and succeed. It can't be you always nagging them, being over the top of them, pushing them. There has to be some kind of ownership in the kid. And that's why, my number one piece of advice to parents all the time is like, hey, just praise their effort, not their accomplishments. Like, just praise their effort, because every kid wants their parent to applaud them. They want affirmation. So if the affirmation is connected to my effort, well, man, I can control that. I can control how hard I play. If I close out, dive on a 50-50 ball, attack the rim, clap for my teammates, sprint the lane, play hard defense, block out. Like, I can control that. I can't control if I had 20 tonight or if I had 7.
Mm-hmm.
If we win or we lose, to an extent, I don't have control over that, how much playing time. So if it's always attached to success or an accomplishment, now you're dealing with a little perfectionist, right? Whereas if a parent in a healthy way is like, hey, you had a tough night tonight, but like, was the effort there? I'm always praise you for your effort. Then now the kid has a shot. The kid has a shot to really grow and develop, because they won't burn out, or they won't just be like, what, I'm never good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my initial thoughts on parents and confidence with kids is, the parents have to really chill and stay back. And that's hard to do, man, because we're all irrational when we come to our kids.
So when I first started training, I would talk to parents and they'd be like, "Yeah, man, my son and daughter, man, they're amazing. Like man, you need to work with them, and they got a lot of potential. This, that, and the third. They're talking them up." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, cool, man. I'm excited to work with them." Like, all right. And I finally came in the session. I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right." And the parents' eye of what they saw and what the reality of what I saw, those two
Mm-hmm.
things didn't pair. And further along the sessions would get, not all of these parents, but a lot of these parents would be the helicopter parent. And they would be fussing during the session. "Oh, you should be making this shot, man. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? You know how to make this." And I'm like, yo, like this is the place to mess up. This is a place to experiment and to fail. Like I get excited about the failure. I don't want you to do the same thing over and over again. Like it's the place to experiment and try stuff. And I remember one session specifically where the kid, like I was taking them through like some new footwork they never done before, just shooting off the dribble certain ways and challenging the footwork. And at first it was the comfort zone, stuff they always did. Like, all right, now we'll try something new. And he was missing, missing, missing. And I told him like, hey, they understood as players, like, yo, y'all gonna missing. I don't care about that. Let's go through the process, get things right.
Mm-hmm.
I should have the dad in the conversation too, because on the sideline, all you heard was, "Oh, make the shot." And as it went along, it got louder and he got longer on his rants. And his confidence was just slowly dropping each miss, each miss. And it got to a point where he was about to cry. You can tell his body language was broken down. And I'm like, yo, what I tell you before we started, you're gonna miss. So we're here. I got you. But then dad was like, man, da 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 da. And at some point he just walked out the session like, man, going off. I'm like, yo, I think he got in a fight or something. But he was about to cry. He's teary eyed and he was just going through it. I pulled him to the side, had a conversation with him, like, I'm gonna talk to your dad for you, so on and so forth. But I say that to say that, man, it's just it almost hurts me that players are dealing with that because they're not trying to make mistakes. They're not trying to mess up. They have the same aspirations that the parents have. I want to be great. I want to do this. I want to be amazing. But
Yep.
one is like parents have unrealistic expectations of being perfect, like he was saying. But I think at the same time, too, they don't have the awareness of where their kid actually is to understand that they're not going to make 10 in a row. Let's be okay with them of where they are and adapt to the process they're going to go through. So you're expecting the off start of a kid, but they can't make a left hand layup or off hand layup. Let's be realistic about where they are. And then number two, take them through this journey to actually get better than they are instead of just expecting perfection and expecting this unrealistic place of where they should be. And it almost hurts me sometimes to see that because like you can just tell the players like, oh my god, here goes that again. Oh, I gotta hear this again. And
Yeah.
from there the game has just changed. Like they're not themselves anymore. But how how have you seen that unfold in your circle of being a trainer? Of like a parent doing that, and then give me the opposite of where you've seen a parent build up the kid.
Well, I'll be a little bit more. I'll be more blunt. So that scenario has nothing to do with the player. You can see that. You're seeing a grown adult who's actually a child who hasn't healed. So they're on the sideline during a workout, going ham, right? Now, does that help or does that hurt the player? Clearly, it hurts the player. Now, you brought him to a workout to help him, right? And you're actually the problem because what the point I'm trying to get to is that it's not even about the kid for that parent. It's about the parent having such insecurity that kid now has to prop up their ego. Like that's why they're going ham. It has absolutely nothing to do with the kid. Let me give you a scenario, okay? So I had a parent who came in. He's a former player, super intense, like psychotic intense. And his son is really talented because his son lives under that pressure every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, dad gets on him, he starts crying, blah, blah, blah. He gets used to it, all right? Over time, you just get used to it. You get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with this dad because I had a good relationship with both of them. And what I told him was, hey, you're, once I had the relationship, I said, you're going to burn this kid out. And the reason why I'm telling you that is not because of the basketball. What's going to happen is the kid is not going to be able to live up to that. But then he's going to burn out and hate basketball, but he's also going to hate you. You're going to lose the father-son relationship because of your intensity. And let's go back to what I said in the beginning. It came from a place of love. Like the dad's like, I want my son to be better than I was. I was a little scrappy guard, but I wasn't as talented and skilled. And so Phil, you got a handle. I want my son to have a handle like you got. And you got, you so I bring him to you and I'm like, dude, I hear you, man, and I love you. I love your heart. I love it that you're paying for your kid, you're providing for him, you're taking him to every which trainer, and I get it, dude. But what I'm trying to tell you is he needs you to be a dad.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to coach or you want to coach? You know what I'm saying? And that's why me personally, I don't really want to, as my kid gets older, I don't want to coach my kid. I want to keep that relationship. And I'll swing that to one of the most powerful conversations I ever had with one of my basketball heroes, Tim Hardaway Sr. Killer crossover, Tim Hardaway. I actually did an event with him, sat in a green room, and I told myself, I said, Phil, don't you say nothing about the killer crossover. Don't you bring up the killer crossover because that was my favorite move. And I'm sitting here with Tim Hardaway, my guy. And I actually prayed about what should I talk to him about if I get a chance. Well, I got about 20 minutes with him in a green room before he was scheduled to come out and make a speech at this big event, basketball event. And I just asked him about his son. At that time he was playing for the Mavs, Tim Hardaway Jr. And I heard him, I think this was on All the Smoke podcast. He talked about his conflicting relationship with his son growing up because he was so hard on him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like, man, you soft, you grew up, you got money. I grew up in the south side of Chicago. So Tim would actually fly his son. They would fly to Chicago and he just dropped him off in the hood to play. He's like, you need to toughen up. And he told me privately that, that almost broke his marriage up because he was so hard on his son. Mm-hmm. And he realized, you know what, my son is not me. He's a different kid, different personality, different type of player. If you notice, he's a two guard in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And so he said, I backed off and decided I just wanted to be dad. I backed off in high school and he flourished after I did that. He just game took off. And he said, you know, what bugged me was my son didn't even want to watch a basketball game with me no more. He would go into his room, lock the door. He'd never even want to watch basketball because he just got so sick of hearing me. And, you know, that's my advice. That's coming from an NBA All Star who then raised an NBA player, that he had to back off and just be dad and try to nurture that relationship, man. So,
One of the things I kind of bounce back and forth on is like pushing your kid, like your kid, like your child, and encouraging them to work more and do better with the not forcing them to do anything. In your thoughts and your experience of what you've seen, how do you balance like pushing your kid to have a high level of work ethic and this is what it takes to be great, but at the same time not forcing them to do anything out of like I want you to be a basketball player, so this is what you're gonna do versus this is what it takes to be a great basketball. How do you find that balance between those two in your opinion, like in what you've seen?
yeah, I think you know, and I'm a hooper, so I love it. My son is 7 years old and he loves basketball. He'll be in the gym tonight with me 2 hours. He's a little skill guard too, which is, man, what a blessing. But I intentionally, man, I don't train him. I don't instruct them. I don't train them. I got my other guys; they deal with them. I just want to be dad, and you know what I would always tell parents is allow the kid to figure out what his gifting is. That's really unfair to enforce your passion upon them. You know what I mean? Because if you're going to play anything and be really good at it in sports, like you got to have the total package, man. You got to have the work ethic, the talent. There's just so many giftings that you're going to need to have if you're going to play at a high level. You're going to need all of it. So if the passion isn't there, if that drive and that energy comes from the parent, not the kid, I mean, you've already lost before you started. You know, you can only go so far. And so that's something I always look for is like, does the kid love it, man? Does he love it? Because you work hard at things you love.
Mm-hmm.
That's why kids stay up all night playing 2K and Fortnite or whatever, and you can't get them to do their math homework, dude. Well, you don't have to tell them to have a work ethic on video games because they love it. It's an outlet. So that's what I'm really looking for at a young age is it a passion for them? Because when I get a kid in the gym, I already know I got to compete with the parent and the iPad. Like that's tough. I got to compete with the video games, and like if I can't get them to fall in love with the game, I've got no shot with them at all. You know what I mean? And so that's where the initial confidence is going to come from is do you love it? And if you love it, then I know I can get you to at least start working at it and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I think that's the piece that I think kind of trips me up sometimes because I've shied away from thinking about being passionate and loving of things. Like there's and some of this is always from like a business frame of mind for me too, but like I don't. There's ugly parts of everything. Like you said, the grass isn't always green on the other side, and I
Yes.
think sometimes people throw out you have to be passionate about it, and sometimes it gets received as everything has to be good and everything has to go well for me to be passionate about it. And they take that as, well, if I don't love 100% of what I'm doing, then I'm not passionate about it. But it's like, no, there's going to be ugly parts of everything. And I think that's the
Absolutely.
message that I would think we have to do a better job of explaining. Like, oh, I'm not passionate about basketball because I don't want to go run after practice, or I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to be sore. Like, no, this is a part of the process too. Like, you can't only love playing basketball. You have to enjoy. We have to even like not enjoy, but just endure the extra conditioning, the extra sessions, the extra weightlifting. It's not always going to be fun. Like you're not going to love every part of it. So that's why I personally try to shy away from the passionate talk and just giving a better understanding of like, look, I don't love every part of podcasting, bro. Like I don't want to sit
Yeah.
here and edit everything every day. I don't want to do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I don't love every part of training. Now the overall aspect, I love all of it. That's why I'm still doing it. That's the
Yeah.
passion comes in. So I think we can do a better job of like, yo, basketball is fun, right? It's a good sport. You love doing it. But if you want to be really good at it, forget about the passion part of that for this part. Like you're not gonna love conditioning, you're not gonna love the extra parts that go into it. But if you love this part of it enough, you'll put up with the rest of this. Like relationship, man. You love your wife. She's amazing. She's awesome. But this is 10%. I'll say it for you, so you're not gonna get in trouble. But there's the things that she does that you kind of wish it wouldn't happen as often, and she could turn down on these things and turn up more on these things. But you gotta have the give and the take, the good and the bad. And I think we can do a better job of explaining the full picture of what's required to be in this game, especially for the kids. But love, I think the fun comes first at that age. Like have fun and enjoy it, but understand that there is some work that comes with it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it comes to my. I mean, when I was a kid, I loved basketball, bro. I played it 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Like,
Hmm.
you didn't have to tell me to do that. I get a kid in the gym that's lazy. Don't want. I'm over here babysitting. I know you don't love it. I know you're not passionate about it. Now I get it. I got a lot of these kids in my program, man. They live it and breathe it. They come in with a new
Hmm.
NBA jersey every day of their favorite player. They watch it. They know the stats. They get in there. Mom has to drag them out of the gym. Drag them out of the gym, right? Give me that kid. That kid, if I tell him this is what it's going to require for you to reach your full potential, right? Here's the plan. And I got these kids. Now they're in high school, some of them, and they're getting up on their own 6 a.m., getting to the YMCA, getting up shots, lifting, doing like that's really my point of it is if I gotta drag you, I gotta beg you, then you don't love it.
Yeah.
You don't love it. Like, you know what I mean? And you might have talent and everything and you can get by on that. But, I always say, it takes the full package, like the full package. But the core piece is, do you love it?
Mhm.
If you love it, you'll sacrifice for it. So
Yeah. I want to go back to what you were saying earlier about parents burning out kids. And lately, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's been a lot of players who they just get on college ball and they're retiring, or they only a year or two in the league and they're retiring. Like some guy,
mm,
he was 21 years old and he retired. Like I'm done with basketball. I forgot what he did. He's doing something else with his life. Um, it was like four guys that just retired really early, really young.
mm.
How much of that is the physical burnout of man, my knees, my body is just breaking down? How much do you think of that is the mental burnout of being put in the game so early and so young and the pressure that comes with it that mentally I just can't do this anymore? How much do you think is the physical versus the mental when it comes to them retiring so soon?
Yeah, that's hard to say because if you actually made it to that level, you got to think too. You're in the top 10th of 1% in the world anyway. I mean, dude,
Yeah.
you if you made it to the pro level, any level, you made it Division 1, whatever it is. Uh, Man, there's no shame. There's no shame in that at all. You know what I mean? So it's hard to say for those situations, but what I will say about burnout, the average age that kids are quitting youth sports nowadays and basketball is around age 11, which is like crazy. You know what I mean? In my personal opinion, I think it's crazy. So that's what I would say is what is it? Why is that? What are the contributing factors of why kids are getting burned out and quitting at a youth early age? And a lot of that comes from the aspect of just the toxic environment, toxic coaching and toxic parenting. You know what I mean? And just kids not enjoying it anymore. It took all the enjoyment out of it because there's so much identity wrapped up in it that they just don't want any part of it. So, I think that's probably the question to really look at is why is the age of why kids are quitting at such a young age now? You know what I mean? Why is the burnout and the quitting happen so early? And I think that goes back to what we were originally talking about is healthy human beings become healthy parents. Healthy human beings, healed people become impactful coaches.
Mhm.
And if you don't, then you become the coach that has so much power over players and identity and who they are. And if you abuse that power, then the flip side of it is, the great evangelist Billy Graham said a coach can have a bigger impact in 1 year than most people have in a lifetime. Well, I'd say probably the flip side of that is if you get a coach who's not healthy, who's
Mm.
really abusing that power, abusing these kids, cussing these kids out, and not building a relationship, they can do more damage in 1 year than most people do in a lifetime. Is the flip side of that.
Mm. Let's talk about the coaches now, man. I think um, there's somewhat of a debate around uh, a coach. What's the saying? Coach can't build your confidence, but it can tear it down. I've seen little debates back and forth about that. Where do you stand on that conversation? Can a coach only destroy a player's confidence and not build it up, or do they have impact in building the confidence too?
Well, I'd make a strong argument that I build a lot of players' confidence. And I'd also make a strong argument that my high school coach was probably the best coach I ever played for in my life. High school, college, pro. And I think he told me he is in year 43. I think 43. I just spoke at their banquet not long ago. So you're talking about four generations of players, and people to this day still love him, still would run through a wall with him. I've seen him coach players and then coach their kids, multiple generations, and they speak of him as their father or their second father. A lot of his players didn't have fathers growing up, and so I think he taught a lot about life. I think he built confidence in a lot of people. So I would argue both ways. I think if you find a coach like that, man, that's a godsend. That's a gift from heaven because there's not very many of them out there like that. But I think they can do both. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. I think coaches can do both. They can build up and they can tear down. Mm.
Um, Coach had coached multiple generations and the impact he had, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So my high school coach, I think if I'm not mistaken, he's been coaching for 42, 43 years, man, four generations. He's actually coached some players and their kids. And what's amazing is they all still come back and love him. They love him like a father for those that didn't have a father, and some of them like a second father. I look at him like that. For me, a second father. And I think I would make that argument that he instilled a lot of confidence in people. Like I said, life and death is in the power of the tongue. That's the proverb.
Mm.
I do think a coach has the ability to build up and tear down. I just don't think there's a whole lot of coaches out there that are making an impact to that level. So if you have one, man, then thank God. I mean, they're a godsend. There's not too many of them out there like that.
Man, we gotta have some type of like regulations around coaching and training, man, because it's it's so many that get into it. Not even from like I don't think a lot of them get into it for money. They just get into it of like I think it's an ego trip sometimes of like I can be the coach now and I can do this, and they don't have the emotional skills, the technical skills. They just know basketball. They might even know basketball at a good enough level to really teach it that well, but or we need a dad to fill in and coach these kids and be like, oh, I'll do it. but now your hot temper that you have in life is going to transfer over here in basketball coaching or just sports coaching, and now the kids are going to get that. I just really wish there was some level of, I think because it's not as respected. It's not like a. I'm not trying to say we're doctors or anything, but everybody can't just be a doctor. Like there's a level of respect on somebody being a doctor. There needs to be some type of gateway, some type of filtering system between a dad who's just volunteering. All right, cool, you're a volunteer dad, but you're going to be an assistant to like somebody who's actually qualified to deal with kids. Like we're not going to let everybody be a teacher. Got to go through background tests and do all these things to be in these positions. I think there should be a better job of us, like, yo, control system of who does this. I understand the sport's growing and people want to get into it more, but you can't just sacrifice quality because there's a huge quantity. Like I'd much rather have 10 AAU teams that's going to have great coaching, great personal development, and the kids are going to grow from that than the hundreds that we have now because they got money to pay to get into this whatever. But that's my little tangent, man. I just really wish that we could do a better job of coaching the coaches on how to do this because there's a lot that goes into it than just, oh, I know basketball. That's cute, bro. That's like 1/4 of the equation. Like, do you really have a heart for like training and teaching these things? Do you have a heart for the kids and their development about them as a human being? Do you have regulations within yourself to control yourself? What comes with all of this? But that's my tangent, man. I'm sorry, but
No, I mean, I'm with you on that. I don't know what the answer to that would be because, we give a lot of flack to parent coaches and daddy ball, but I mean, without the parents, no youth sports would exist. I
yeah,
mean, in one sense or the other, it's 90% daddy ball. I mean, you're volunteering to make the whole world go round in the youth sports world at every sport at every level. You know what I mean? So most it's hard to say what that certification or that standard would be. I know it's broken for sure. But the other aspect now is it's become a full fledged business, and so wherever there's cheese, there'll always be rats. So that's the problem with it. You know what I mean? Is they don't they're it's hard to say when you're in a free market of business. It's capitalism. So it is the wild wild west in that sense.
yeah. And think that's kind of like the origin story of a lot of kids' confidence being built or destroyed, like we talked about earlier. Like my first coach when I was 7 destroyed me and said I couldn't do anything and do this and do that. So now that transferred to not liking basketball, like not liking this sport anymore. But it's bigger than that because, like you said, the opposite of a player being with the kid. I mean, a player being with the coach who's like, "Yo, I love what you did here. Like that's amazing. I love the effort that you put in. And this can be the worst kid on the team, like we all know. But that kid believes in what you're saying, yo, you won.
Yeah.
Because that kid should not feel as confident as the first kid that everybody knows. Oh, they're pro level. Like, all right, bro, they're 7 years old, but whatever. So if the last kid can feel as confident as that first kid, you're winning now. Because that's a trajectory for them to be like, maybe I could do this basketball thing, or maybe if I don't like basketball, I can go out and do this instrument. I can go out and be in math or do whatever. Versus like the opposite side of it is like, man, if I can do basketball, I might as well not even try this. I can't try that because in their mind, this is who I am and that's what I do. So I think that's where the origin story comes in about being a hero or the villain because that's my first enemy I had was my own coach. They destroyed me before anybody else can get to me. My own parent destroyed me before anybody else can get to me. So I think that's where I think that's the start of the player's confidence. It's like let's get the parents to understand the formula and the environment to groom a more confident player, but more importantly, human being. All right, coaches, this is what we got to expect from you to conduct this environment to bloom this type of flower. So like let's get your opinion like what that environment looks like. So the player is right here in the middle. We're talking to the parents over here, and we're talking to the coaches next over here. What are we talking to the players about? What are we talking to the parents about? What are we talking to the coaches about?
Yeah, I think, if I had to simplify it in a nutshell, it's really laying out the clear guidelines of expectations and communication. Like, how are we going to communicate? Most coaches quit because of the parents, not the players.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
there has to be a clear understanding of how we're going to communicate and what the objective is. Okay. So if I come into a situation where I'm a parent and I like that chaos, I like a coach that's cussing my kid out, that's pushing them, and what I'm saying, like I want that circuit AAU environment
Mhm.
that I want to be around, and I'm willing to. That's their idea. Well, if it's not clearly communicated by the coach, this is our objective this season. My objective is we want to be competitive. We're gonna practice more than we play. So we're gonna really focus in on development, and I'm really trying to build life skills in them. That's a noble thing and idea, but if it's not clearly communicated, you get what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. I don't want to say this. We should tell each person this. I think starting with the coach, this is the expectation of the players. This is what I'm looking for very clearly, and that might be individual. Like here's the role I'm looking for, and then a communication to the parents of like, hey, this is how we're gonna communicate, and this is what you can expect out of me. So that coach really plays that role of being the CEO and the leader as well. I think it has to come from the coach, those expectations, and then how we're going to communicate.
Hmm. So if you were, let's take it with your kids. So
Mhm.
you're putting your kid into this, league of whatever age they're in or whatever. Your first talk is going to be with the coach about, hey, my son and daughter wants to play. What type of coaching are you going to be doing? That's your first conversation. You're going to talk to the coach first, right?
Yeah, I think for me, well, first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask around. Your
Mm,
reputation precedes you. It's not that hard, especially in like Louisville. I know everybody's in the basketball world, their reputation. So you just need to ask a few parents of what was your experience like. Just do a little bit of due diligence in your own research, and then just go to the coach and just ask them, what is your philosophy? Like, what is your objective right here? What are you doing? Um,
mm,
and I can't speak for everyone else, but I feel like I have a pretty good discernment on character when I speak to someone. So I'm kind of looking for that as well. I think resume goes into that. You want to look at kind of what they did and what their resume is. And then I'm really big on like, I want to know what your philosophy is. You know what I mean? Like how you gonna get this kid better and what you're gonna really emphasize on. Is some are just like, we just gonna play the best competition. I want to put them out there, throw them in a shark tank. And that's cool. If that's, I just want to clearly know what your expectations are. So that's probably how I would approach it as a parent.
mm. So now let's go flip side. It's your team, and now you have to address the parents. How are you handling that?
Yeah. If it was me personally, I would say, hey, I really want to emphasize development and confidence with these kids, so we're not going to do a whole lot of traveling. Let's just put it like that. We're not going to do a whole lot of traveling. We're going to really emphasize on keeping them here, and we're going to try to get in around 3 practices and skill development a week.
Mm,
And then, we're going to play our weekend games, but we're going to play local tournaments. I don't want to put them in over their head. And you know what? We're going to do, I'm going to disciple them, man. So we're going to do a little Bible studies together. We're going to do confidence workshops together. And I just want to have an open line of communication with you as a parent. So if you give me feedback, it helps me to know where your child's at. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna be unfair to any of the kids. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to really grow and flourish. So I think that would be mine. Is like emphasize this is what we're gonna do: confidence and development.
mm,
I'm not worried about if we win a bunch of tournaments. If we win them, great. If we don't, we don't. But I'm not going to emphasize on we going here to this name brand shoe company tournament or whatever, And you can have that, but I think it's just great if you emphasize like, hey, this is the level I think these kids are at right now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get the highest ROI for your time, money, energy that you're pouring into this spring or summer or whatever? I think it would be if we can get them from here to here. And here is my development plan. Here's my plan. We're going to have 2 practices for every 1 game. It's clear. We're going to have 2 practices for every 1 game, or 2 skill development sessions for every 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm going to try to use a high rotation. I'm not going to leave 6 players into the game. I'm actually going to use, so that's personally how I would handle it, is just make it very clear. I want to get everybody in, but not everybody's going to play the same amount of time. But I'm going to give every kid a shot to prove themselves. And regardless of how much they play or don't play, I'm going to develop them. I'm going to invest in them. I'm going to develop them. I'm going to pray over them. I'm going to try to build their confidence to whatever level they're at. So we started at A, and maybe we can move to D or C. You know what I mean? We just work at different levels. So that's personally what I would do as a coach.
I like that. So let's say your kid comes home and they're like, hey, it's not that the coach is being disrespectful, but they just don't instill the confidence in them. Or one of your players are coming to you during the session like, hey, man, my coach is, I'm not playing a whole lot, and it's kind of in fact impacting my confidence. I don't feel like they trust me, and when I do get in the game, I mess up more because I'm not feeling confident, so I'm going to get pulled right back out. How do you help them kind of get out of that funk of, being in that rut, not feeling confident, to get back to being themselves? What are you going to tell that player?
Yeah, 2 things. Number one is go to your coach, look them in the eye, and ask them how I can help the team, not how I can get more playing time or more shots. Don't make it a selfish conversation. Make it a team conversation. How can I fill a row that helps the team? If you want a bigger row, dominate the row you're in now. Give me a row, clearly define it. Let me dominate that row so I gain your trust, and then I get a bigger row. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. Most players, they struggle and they create a narrative where they're the victim. And the coach doesn't have time. The parent only thinks about the child and then the team. The kid only thinks about himself and nobody else. The coach, as a default, has to think about the team. Mm-hmm. I have to think about all these individuals, and I'm juggling personalities, parents, politics. It's a lot. So if you go quiet and dark on me, you actually make it really easy for me to push you down to the end of the bench. Don't be that kid. Go to your coach, look him in the eye. Hey, I'm struggling. Because you might see a totally different side than what the coach sees, and vice versa. So now there's an open line communication. Me as a coach, if a kid comes to me and says, how can I help the team? And I see the kid do number 2, put in more work. Show up earlier, stay later. Work on the things that I asked you. If I see a kid do those 2 things, they communicate with me of how they can help the team, and I see them putting in work even when they're struggling, guess who's the first kid I want to give a shot to when there's an open opportunity? That kid. But it's hard to be a hero when you have a victim's mentality. Hard to be the hero in your story when you're a victim. My coach hates me. My coach sucks. My coach doesn't know anything. Go talk to him, man. Do the basic stuff that I can't even get college players to do, B. I can't even get college players to do that. I talk to college players. Man, I know I'm the coach hating on me. Coach is trying to manage a whole college program and feed his family, bro. He ain't worried about you or how many shots you got or didn't got. Go to him and ask him how I can help the team. And then put your head down and work. Point blank.
And I love this, man. This has been a great conversation. But from you as a trainer, as a man, as a father, husband, what is the biggest advice that you've gotten, or somebody told you something, it changed your perspective on confidence, or it just gave you that boost of confidence? What's the advice that was given to you that impacted you and helped you in this journey?
Uh, as a trainer, so this is a good story to land a plane on right here. This is a good story. I tell this story all the time. Um, I wanted to be the best basketball trainer on the planet. I was naive. I wanted. I didn't know what I was asking for. So first year or two into my training, I'm thinking, man, how am I going to get to the point where I'm training LeBron and Kyrie if I can't get this girl to make a left-handed layup?
Mm-hmm.
That's my thought process. So I got a girl comes in the gym, sweet as can be. Her dad drives an hour and a half every week to train 1 hour with me. Back when I was doing straight one-on-ones. So we get in here, and bam, B, I tell you what, if we took one step forward, we took 4 steps back every time I seen her. She couldn't. She had 2 left feet, couldn't walk and chew gum. Just struggle bus, man. So any progress we made last week, it's like everything went out the window every time I saw her, bro. I was just like, oh man. So I'm competitive about it. I'm like, come on, man, we got to learn this. Da, 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 da. So we working. I'm pushing her. I'm like, you got to work on some of this stuff on your own. Dad never stayed for a session. He drop her off, leave, come back the last 5 minutes. So I'm going over there giving them a report. All right, if we work on this, we did this, she improved at this. Could you get her to work a little bit more at home on it? And one day he just stopped me. This is back when they used to pay cash. He's pulling cash out to pay me. He says, Phil, you know why I bring her here every week? I'm like, no, sir. He's like, man, I know you're a great trainer and I know you're helping her. But he's like, I know my daughter's not any good. I know she's not talented. But I bring her to you because every time she gets in the car, she smiles and is more confident.
Mm.
And I know what you stand for. And I appreciate it. And as a father, I want and pray for good people to be around my daughter. And that's why I bring her to you. And I know she's not any good. You want to talk about a ton of bricks hit me. This is before I had kids. So I wasn't a father yet. And I realized I missed the main thing. Bro, the main thing is keep the main thing the main thing. I was missing out on the ability to truly impact this girl and this family because I was focused on me and how good of a trainer I was. And this goes back into parenting too, when we have a parent going ham on a kid. When God showed me I could have the biggest impact on helping create this young girl's identity and confidence and who she is as a person in a situation where she's not good at it. I just missed it, totally missed it, humbled me. And I really walked away from that. That was like year one of training, almost 10 years ago, man. And this girl is now an adult. She's grown, an adult, moved on, graduated college, all that. But she was middle school at that time. And that always stuck with me. That one story of keep the main thing the main thing. I mean, nobody's playing basketball forever. Nobody's playing sports forever. They grow up, they become adults, they become husbands, wives, business leaders, whatever they become. And the impact you make on their life through the platform of sports or coaching is going to far outweigh any results you got through the skill development work or results on the court or the field or whatever. So, I mean, I think I would close with that, man, is don't overlook your ability to impact a kid and a family's life with that little bit of time you have in their life. You play a very small portion of their life, very small portion. And whoever God puts in front of you, don't look at it as though they came to me. Look at it as no, God sent me to them.
Mm.
I've been called to pour into this other person who's an image bearer of God through something as simple as basketball. And so then if you have that in context, now I can build up their confidence. I can build up their identity. I can build up their self-worth or help them overcome perfectionism or anxiety or whatever they're dealing with.
Mm.
Man, you just like a walking quotable man. Like you got so many bars he just dropped, and it's like, golly, man. You you got too many, man. But okay, I'm gonna ask for one more, just one more.
All right,
So
yeah.
now give advice to whoever you feel led to give advice to, whether it's a parent, trainer, kid, whoever. Like now give the advice of confidence to them, whoever you feel a message need to be sent to.
Yeah, I think I would just give this as a general thing of building confidence. I would say first, what we touched on earlier was whatever you're struggling with, there is a internal and there's an external struggle to every person. There's an internal battle and there's an external battle. Let me use Michael Phelps as an example. Michael Phelps' external battle was he wanted to be the greatest Olympian of all time, win 20 something gold medals. And guess what? He did that. And then he wanted to kill himself.
Mhm.
Within every man and woman, there's an external battle that everyone sees, and then there's an internal battle. And a lot of people win that external battle and they lose the internal battle. The suicide rate is at the all-time high it's ever been in history since World War II, particularly for men and teenagers. So we have more information, we have more access, we have more resources, and we're more miserable than ever. We lack identity and confidence more than ever. We have a higher rate of prescription drugs and therapy than ever. So I think when it comes to confidence, you have to ask yourself, what is my external struggle? And then God revealed to me, what is my internal struggle? Because that internal struggle, whatever that is, that might go back to parenting, your parent as a child, some trauma, some sense of guilt or condemnation that you carry upon yourself that you're not good enough or not lovable or whatever it might be. You need to find out what that is and then allow yourself permission to be a human being, which is if we know that we're not perfect, there's only one that was perfect, that was Jesus. If we know we're not perfect, then why do we hold ourselves to a standard of perfection? And we beat ourselves when we don't reach it. That's a lie. You know what I'm saying? Like we're believing a narrative in a lie, and we hold ourselves to a standard that's impossible to live up to. And my freedom in life is when I realize as an athlete, from an athlete that beat himself up all the time, always hard on myself. When I realized that my acceptance to my heavenly Father and then by default, everyone else around me was not based on my performance. It was based on the performance of another. That my acceptance is not how good of a basketball player I am, how good of a trainer I am, how much money I make, how much I read the Bible, how much I go to church, how many good deeds I do. That's my performance. Those are great. My performance is based on the perfection of another. That I'm accepted by God, not on how I live, because I can never live up to a perfect standard, but that Jesus lived a perfect standard for me. He lived a perfect life, no sin. He died on a cross, not for his sins, but for mine. That while I was yet his enemy, Jesus died for me. That's power right there. And then to prove that he's the real deal, he didn't stay in the tomb. He resurrected to prove that he's the real deal, that God will not accept our sacrifices. He only accepts the sacrifice of his son on the cross, resurrected. And man, that's what it means to have peace. That's what you really want. Everybody that's listening out there searching and grinding. What you really want is peace. That's what you want. You want peace. There's peace in knowing that I can't earn it, I don't deserve it, and I don't have to. I can rest in the work of someone else, and that's Jesus, man. And that's the ultimate confidence, the ultimate peace. And that's what I have, regardless of whatever's happening out there.
Mm. I don't know how many quotables you gave right there, but it just added to the list, man. Uh,
Yeah,
but nah, man, for people that want more quotables and people that want more of all the wisdom and the gems that you have an entire community built around basketball and confidence specifically dealing with basketball. So everything we talked about in this episode, you have a community basically framed around it, right?
yeah. I'm really pouring into a project on the school platform, school.com. My community is called the Confident Point Guard. I boiled it down to what are the two things that I get the most questions about and I feel like I can make the biggest impact in. And that's number one, building confidence in a player. And number two is teaching the point guard skill set. That's what I was my whole life, high school, college, and pro. And so that's really what I dedicated that community to. And it was very important to me that I made that community free because I just work with so many missionaries and people around the world that just wouldn't have the resources to pay for something like that. So the community is entirely free. You can get into that. It's called the Confident Point Guard on school.com. It's been growing like crazy. And just, I think last week I added 115 new people to it. And there's free courses in there, free workshops, it's free drills. I do live Zoom calls. And but it's the thing is it's not me. It's there's a community of other people that are helping each other, and there's power in community. So I got it there. I have some premium stuff too, like stuff that I do charge for, full programs. But what I needed was a centralized place to put everything, and then allow a ton of free resources for people to bless them. So man, that's what I have to offer.
Yeah. So anybody that's interested in that, I have the link below. And it's skool.com. And it's not
Yes,
regular
school.com.
school, it's skool.com. But I have the link and everything below for anybody that's interested in this. Um, anything else you want to share? Anything about confidence? Anything else you want to get off?
No, man. I mean, I think I would leave with the Mark Twain quote, which is, "Don't let school get in the way of your education."
Mm,
So what I'm doing is giving education, and I think that's the most important thing, man. There's so much power in knowledge. So if you guys want a community for that, building confidence and learning the point guard skill set, that's the place to be. And thank you again, brother. I appreciate you. Proud of how you've stuck with this podcast and watching your growth and evolution. So I'm just thankful to be a part of it.
Man, I appreciate you being part of it, man. It's our second time doing this, so I could have been terrible the first time. You were like, nah, I'm good, man. I'm busy. I got session. I couldn't come back, but I appreciate you being a part. Um, and I want to close this one out a little bit differently, and I feel like I should have did this the first time too. So for like um checking off the P's and Q's, subscribe, do whatever other podcasts and subscribers say, do that for me too. Like just pretend like I said all that stuff. But I want you to close this out with a prayer. Um, just do you like just close out in prayer,
Yeah.
and that's how we're gonna wrap it up, man.
Okay, let's do it. Heavenly Father, we come to you only on the basis of Jesus. Lord, I thank you for what he did for us on the cross, Lord, that he lived a perfect life. He died for us to take away the sins of the world. Everyone who's listening right now, Lord, they have access to you because of what Jesus did, and he resurrected. And so through that, I just pray for everyone that hears this podcast, whatever they're struggling with right now, their secret, dark, internal struggle that very few people know about. I just pray that you minister to them there in that place, behind the mask, whatever they're going through right now, whatever burdens they're carrying. This is the holiday time right now when we're recording this, and I know it's a hard time for a lot of people. People have lost loved ones and family members during this time, and this world needs hope desperately right now. So I just pray that they find that in you, and so I pray a special blessing over my brother B and the work that he's doing, that you continue to use him to be a light and you draw his heart closer to you. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen. That's it.
Amen. All right, my brother.
Oh man, Phil just gave us some very valuable insight on confidence, man. I hope you got some value from this episode. And it's all talking about how players can build their confidence and how the trainers and coaches play a role and how parents play a role in the environment of a player's confidence. How they can either strengthen it or weaken it. But even with the right approach and the right environment that we have, there are still some very silent threats that can sneak in and kill our confidence if we're not being aware and paying attention to it. It has a chance to undo all the work that we've done and all the growth that we've put in, still have give us some setbacks. And that's exactly what I'm tackling in the next episode, my solo episode, the big confidence killers in our games. So some of the things that piggybacking off we talked about with Phil is the environment that we're around. And some of the things are more internal things that we're doing to ourselves that we're not even aware of. It could be the people, it could be the places, or the situations that we're in that can either fuel or break down and destroy our own confidence. So I break these things down for you just so you can be aware of it, and now you can protect your confidence. So all the work that you put in doesn't get destroyed now, and it can actually stick. All right, so make sure that you're locked in. So if you're locked in, that means you're subscribed, because you don't want to miss that episode and the next ones that follow up afterwards. So without further ado, I appreciate you tuning in. See you on the next episode. Let's keep building.